So today we're going to talk about the newest character in Tactical Monsters, Pruce Lee. Why does that character seem so familiar?
Crazy Cage、彼を取り除きます。
Hey everyone, welcome to another Reality Skewed Gamers video. I am Finity, one of the tactical noobs, and we are here to talk about Pruce Lee. Now, Pruce Lee is going to be the latest character that's coming into Tactical Monsters for you. You can see by his brief description, he wears yellow tights, he has nunchucks, he is the most agile panda ever. And I can say after playing him for a little bit, he definitely is a very agile panda, a lot more than you would expect from a panda. Now, let's talk about his abilities. He is a legendary character, and let's start off with his common ability. So his common is actually pretty straightforward. It's attacks with the nunchucks. Nothing too special about it, nothing too crazy about it, just straightforward damage. And we'll talk about his stats in a little bit, but his common ability, pretty straightforward. Pruce Lee also has two passive abilities. So his first one is Tai Chi, and what it does is that it'll absorb damage from the first attack each turn, and then use that against an opponent when he does his next attack. And so this could actually include his counter attack as well. Now, this is only once each turn, and at the beginning it only reduces it by 25. Once you get it to level 2, which is at level 15, you'll be able to reduce the incoming damage that he uses for his Tai Chi by 50%, and then he will then add that to his damage. Now, this can stack multiple times, and it'll be over several turns because he can only get this the first time each turn. So it might take some time to really start to gather this damage, but if you can make a big blast by Pruce Lee to deal this damage. So his Seismic Palm is a really interesting passive ability. We've seen something similar to this before. Now what it does is that common attacks can also hit enemies directly behind the target. So we've seen something similar to this with a character like Rambo, who will hit two characters in a line. This one will also knock an enemy back by one cell when he does the damage. And that's at level 17 once you get it to the max level. So pretty neat ability here, very similar to Rambo until you get to the next part. Now the next part is this skill can be used on allied units to hit enemies directly behind them and will not deal damage to the allied unit. Now what's interesting about this is that when we tried this with Khan, his lurking predator was not triggering. This is what we noticed, and you'll see it in some of the gameplay that we're going to put afterwards. Khan was not attacking as a result of the damage being dealt with Pruce Lee. Now, what we think is happening here is that in order to attack a character behind your allied character, you're actually targeting your attack on your ally. And it just happens to be hitting somebody behind. So because you are not targeting the enemy, which is the trigger for Khan, you are not then getting the lurking predator to trigger on Khan. So that was one of the first combos we were looking at for this, whether or not Khan and Pruce Lee would be a good combo, especially on those maps that end up having like a funnel where you might be able to block it off with Khan and have Khan block and then Pruce Lee behind hitting the other enemy and triggering lurking predator. Doesn't work that way. So something just to keep note of there, we were not able to get Khan and Pruce Lee to work when we tested this. So it'll be pretty interesting to see what else combinations you guys come up with. We came up with a few different characters that we saw, and so we'll talk about those here after the gameplay. Now his ultimate is called Flying Dragon. Now one of the downsides to this, it is a 5 energy ultimate, or a 5 pip. So it does take a while for Pruce Lee to get this up. Really neat is that he can basically travel anywhere on the battlefield. It's a huge range. He leaps into the sky. He does 100% damage. What we notice though is that if you don't have the Tai Chi kind of loaded up on him, the damage isn't that much. It was a little bit underwhelming for some of the other ultimates, especially that the legendaries can provide. So it didn't seem all that great. Now, what he does provide is a taunting of all nearby enemies, which is also really useful because this can help prevent any of your other melee characters from being attacked, especially if they're lower on health. So let's talk a little bit about his stats and see whether or not we really do want Pruce Lee to be tanking all of these different things. So when we compared his stats to the other characters in the game, what we saw is that his health is actually just in the middle of the entire range. So he's not very health-oriented tanky in terms of all of the other characters. When we look specifically with legendary characters, what we found is that there's only 2 characters that have more health than he does. So amongst the legendaries, his health is pretty high. The 2 characters that had more health than Pruce Lee were actually Rambo and Ares. And I think with a lot of us, what we've noticed with Rambo is that he does tend to seem a little bit squishier than he probably should be with that much health, but his physical damage is a little bit less. Now this is where we get a little bit of a trade-off between Pruce Lee and Rambo, who are very similar in a lot of their gameplays. Rambo has a 2 physical defense and a 3 magic defense. Pruce Lee is the opposite. He has a 3 physical defense and a 2 magical defense. And so if you are playing these characters and you're trying to figure out whether or not maybe you leave your reinforcement or you're pulling from your bench either a legendary character potentially, right? Pruce Lee may be a good one to bring in if you're facing a lot of physical damage. Rambo may be a little bit better if you're pulling in magic damage. But these 2 characters seem to parallel a lot in terms of their usage. And Pruce Lee, having that 3 physical defense does make him really good against melee, like physical damage targets. Now, his damage is also not super, right? He's above most of them. He's in that 65-ish% range. So he's still better than most of the people. The one thing to consider here is that based on the first attack that he takes each turn, his damage does go up. And so what's important to realize with Pruce Lee, whether you're facing him, for example, is if you are going to be doing multiple attacks on him, you're going to want to try and get one of your weaker characters to attack Pruce Lee the first time each turn. That way he doesn't gain as much from the Tai Chi, and that'll make his attacks weaker. When he doesn't have the Tai Chi really kind of loaded up, his damage is really underwhelming. And so he really is somebody you have to make sure you understand the mechanics of when you're using him or when you're facing him in order to make sure he's not going to do a ton of damage. If you do start loading up damage on him, he can hurt. He can hurt pretty bad. But more important, hit him with a weaker damage, and then his damage is definitely considerably less. His initiative puts him kind of in the middle of the pack there, his initiative of 40, but his mobility for how big this panda is actually pretty good. He can travel a good distance, so whenever you need somebody in the front lines, Pruce Lee may not be a bad choice if you have the right support. So let's watch some of the battles that we did, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the characters that we thought had some good synergy.
Really, Mudman, okay. Oh, and the Leprechaun. And why do I get to go first again?
You have a faster character.
I guess so. I thought I'm just going to attack your dude here. Mm-hmm. Oh, he hit for a bunch there.
Mm-hmm.
But he doesn't hit a second time. Interesting. It's your Lucky Charm dude's turn. It's my turn. I'm gonna attack him again. Oh, now I can't do nothing. I gotta come up here. I'm gonna go attack Lucky Charm with this guy. Oh, he missed.
Yeah.
But I got a counter attack on a miss?
Yeah, that's the way it works. That was my mistake.
Oh, now I'm getting some Tai Chi. Oh, you killed my dude.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Oh, boom, shakalaka. It's your turn. With your lucky charm. Oh, you hit him good. Well, we can only do one thing.
There goes your con.
He hits pretty hard. Oh, now I've got my my flaming whatever. I'm gonna come over here and do it.
So you can like jump around the entire map. So
yeah, which is kind of cool. I missed.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, man.
That's
How unfortunate. And I missed again.
You missed again. I love Lucky. Lucky is a lot of fun. Good old Patrick.
Die. I'm dead. I'm dead. There ain't no way. He should resurrect. Why are there two of him now? They should resurrect him. The problem is I don't have a whole lot of range characters. Do this. All right. I think that's right. I'm gonna try that. If I do that, I'm gonna get blocked down there, and I don't really want to do that, so we're gonna wait. I'm fine with this. Lumber can come all the way over here. I know what I'm doing. I'm gonna try this. That's not where I meant to go. It's a very bad spot for you. You're gonna get. I meant to be one thing. Oh, yeah, I meant to be right where you summoned that thing. That's gonna be bad. You're gonna die, girl. Oh, that was a big hit. That was a really big hit. Yeah.
All right. See what happens.
You can't really do anything. Thumper, you're like not even in the battle. Come on, man. There you go, Thumpy. What?
Thumper's fun.
Beast mode, Thumper.
Let's see how we can deal with your Pruce Lee here.
Oh, you stunned me, brah. You made it where I skipped a turn.
Let's keep going after your Pruce Lee here. No, let me wait. Let's go there. We got Angry Baba. Get rid of Thumper.
That Colonel couldn't be stunned.
Yeah, he can't. You stun him and then he gets rid of it.
This might be a big hit. Oh, that was a nice big hit.
And now I go through my guy.
I know it.
And then, ooh, okay. So that's interesting.
Yeah,
the seismic palm doesn't trigger lurking predator.
Mm-hmm. That if it did, that would be freaking sweet.
That's what I wanted to hope for, but this should. There we go.
Yep, that did trigger it.
Okay, well that's good to know. So that means that combo isn't going to work as well as I was hoping.
That combo would have been sweet, man.
Mm-hmm.
How did you resist that?
Baba has some pretty good resistance, actually.
Like, his defense is pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't counterattack that.
Mm-hmm. There goes Baba.
Finally.
There goes Thumper. Now we need to get rid of Wuxi.
I don't know why Wuxi doesn't counter. Wuxi feels like he should counter.
So let's talk about the synergies now. In our testing, when we tested out multiple different characters, we found two characters of each of the other different levels that seem to synergize pretty well with Pruce Lee. So the first one, if we look at monstrous characters, are going to be Missy and Dak Dak. Now the reason for Missy is because Pruce Lee is going to be on the front lines. As we mentioned before, one of his biggest weaknesses will be that when you attack him with a weaker character, it's going to eat up that Tai Chi passive ability. And so what we want to do is try to make it so that he gets attacked with something a little bit more harder, a bigger attack, so he has more punch behind his next attack because of Tai Chi. Because Missy can put a shield on Pruce Lee, now potentially you will need to waste 2 low damage attacks on Pruce Lee in order to not have him trigger his Tai Chi with a higher damage ability. And most teams don't have 2 characters that are going to be that weak. And so what you can effectively do is have a weak attack being used in order to eat up one of the UARs off of Missy that she can put onto Pruce Lee, and then another attack that will be a little bit harder, will give more damage that Pruce Lee can then absorb and then return with the Tai Chi. The other reason for Dak Dak is very similar. With Dak Dak's acid being on the target, they take 25% more damage. So even if he's getting a weak damage in Tai Chi, Pruce Lee will then be able to attack a target that Dak Dak has and then basically increase the damage by another 25% because of the poison. And so this synergy works out really well between the two. When we look at epic characters, really, there was only one character that really stood out as synergizing well with Pruce Lee, and that was Wuxi. Now, the reason for Wuxi is because we talked about another weakness of Pruce Lee, which is that his ultimate is a 5 energy ultimate. That makes it really difficult to gain that many. And so by having Wuxi on there, and with his threat ability reducing some of the energy of other characters, that gives you more time in order to build up your Pruce Lee's ultimate. And so Wuxi helps to get his ultimate kind of going a little bit earlier in comparison to others by reducing their energy. Now, a distant second in terms of the epic characters that synergize with Pruce Lee is going to be Mudman. Now, Mudman is because he can slow down some of the characters, and Mudman is kind of a generically good epic character for any team, so he's kind of a really good plug and play. He did seem to work really well with Pruce Lee, especially since he's ranged, so you get the ranged addition to Pruce Lee being up there in melee, reducing initiative, kind of being able to do extra damage. So Mudman was our second favorite to be synergizing with Pruce Lee, but again, distant favorite to Wuxi. And now with the common characters, the two that really stood out are Patrick and Sabrina. Now, Sabrina, pretty straightforward. She's going to be a similar reason that we just talked about with Wuxi. It's the reduction of the energy, getting his 5 energy ultimate on Pruce Lee to make it seem like it's a little bit faster because you have other characters reducing the energy of the opponents. And the reason for Patrick is because Pruce Lee needs to keep on going. And if he is going to be taking a lot of damage, even though he's somewhat tanky with his physical defense and his magic defense, his hit points not all that great. He can absorb a lot of extra damage with the first attack that's being done, but if that's a weak attack, he's still going to take the brunt of force from the remaining difficult attacks. And so by having Patrick on the team, you can, one, keep him cleansed of all of the other effects that may reduce Bruce Lee's ability to be effective, but in addition, when Patrick's ultimate comes up, you can get a heal off on Pruce Lee. And that makes it so Pruce Lee can survive a little bit longer to get off that flying dragon kick. So, with that, I am Infinity of the Tactical Noobs. I hope you guys enjoyed this and are going to have fun playing around with Pruce Lee. We had a lot of fun playing around with him, and we'll see you next time.
We have a battle going. Let's see how this works.
Yeah, but you have your ultimate up.
I know, but I don't know. Let's see how this plays out. Dak Dak is nasty.
I know it. And now Dak Dak has his ultimate.
Mm-hmm. Dak Dak's going to eat the panda. Yep, Dak Dak ate the panda.